Yeah, it was just like insane. You know, if I had not done this, I would have never become like a multimillionaire so early.
Meet Guillaume Moubeche. He bootstrapped a SaaS empire, or should I say Lempire, that currently includes 5 SaaS tools and brings over $20 million in annual recurring revenue. It took Guillaume only 5 years to go from zero to a millionaire, and his company is valued at over $150 million today. Guillaume is an absolute beast with his work ethic, and I feel like he has double the energy of a regular person.
Wait, I think I have your book right on my shelf. The fact that you wrote it in 2 weeks, you're a freaking machine.
You're about to learn why it is silly to rely on product-led growth too much.
I even feel like product-led growth is a term that's been invented by marketers. It's a myth.
Does your business need a community? And the big mistakes both of us made on that front.
You know what I realized? I blame you for us.
How to get coverage on TechCrunch without taking any money from VCs.
And it was very cocky, a bit like sneaky to do it. And then I got like interviewed in tons of French media.
And an absolutely fantastic trait that you should look for when hiring people.
I think there's a big difference between willing to be a top performer and recognizing talent and not being threatened by other talent.
My name's Tim Solo, and you're listening to Ahrefs podcast.
Ahrefs podcast.
It's actually pronounced Ahrefs.
Oh, sorry, my bad. Let's do it again. Ahrefs podcast.
Let's kind of start from the end. I wonder, where do you see Lemlist? Like, what's the potential of Lemlist?
I think there is no real limit because so Lemlist is the most well-known product, but the company is called Lempire, and we have like several tools actually. Essentially, like our mission is to turn ambitious businesses into big names. So we are very focused, on SMBs, and we want to help them replace the old dinosaurs that are enterprise company. So we love to work with like innovators, like fast-growing companies, etc. And our goal is to build the most innovative tools, like a suite of tools that will help them achieve their goal, which is like getting more growth. So step by step, as we are growing, we are, like adding new products, new offering, and we're more becoming of a platform rather than just like a single product. And I feel like when you are a platform and you offer a suite of tools that can help your customers like grow, essentially like you become a lot more sticky and you can grow your company. I think to like HubSpot, I think is a good example. Like if you look at them, HubSpot, they started, as inbound.org, like they were the one, like talking a lot about how do you create content, etc., etc. And eventually right now, they have like a whole platform offering like a various diversity of tools. Some are good, some are bad, etc. But I just think there is always a cycle for this type of companies. So they started by, like focusing heavily on content. And of course, content works. I mean, you're the proof of it. Ahrefs is like an awesome company. We're customers and we love like, but it's true. Like we love to use it, for our SEO and kind of like track everything and boost, the traffic that we receive. But you also see that there are always new opportunities, always new customer acquisition channels. And sometimes, there is kind of like a renew. Personally, I think like LinkedIn is huge when it comes to driving, revenue and content creation. We see that Google now is indexing also like LinkedIn posts. So it's the industry is constantly evolving and there are tons of, I think, new opportunities. So it's quite interesting.
One interesting thing that you said is that you do not believe in product-led growth. I think you also gave an example that product-led growth is about kind of comparing yourselves to competitors based on like features and functionality and appearing in those lists where like different tools are being compared, and you're going to win some, you're going to lose some. That is kind of not that big of a competitive advantage. As you have this website, Profit-Led Growth. So you are an advocate of profit-led growth. Did you coin the term? Is it like your thing?
Yeah. This is even the name of my profile on LinkedIn if you go see.
Okay. So if product-led growth, let's not talk yet about profit-led, but if product-led is not the thing, well, of course, like, let's not take it out of context. I'm sure you believe that product is very important. It should like do what people expect it to do. It should like help people to be more successful, yada, yada, yada. But what I am taking away from this message, being a marketer, is that marketing is incredibly useful for like growing a company. So can you walk me through this thought process? So you have a product, like the product is amazing, but so is like the product of your competitor is amazing. So like, is marketing that crucial really? Like, what is the role of marketing?
Yeah, I'm gonna give you like several examples or maybe put a bit more context on why I say that. So for me, I've met, like probably thousands of developers in the last years, all like reaching out often because my role is to really help out like as many founders as I can and, like help them grow, give them tips, etc. through different channels. And a lot of them, read everywhere that product-led growth was a thing. So whenever you are like a developer or like a product builder, you're just going to go at it, you code, you build everything, and then you expect to have customers. And the reality is like all these developers I've met never succeeded. I've met like brilliant developers who coded for 20 years, who were like so happy to understand about this trend of product-led growth. They built like the best product ever. No one knows about it. And essentially it ended up in the dark. And that's it. And that's the end. And for me, any super successful SaaS that everyone wants to, I even feel like product-led growth is a term that's been invented by marketers to basically say that their product is so great that it's growing by itself. But it's a myth. It's not the reality, because the first users that you're going to get for your product, you need to go get them, whether it's by doing cold email, cold outreach on LinkedIn, messaging like people, doing ads, doing SEO, anything, but you need to go out there and get them. And it's only when you delight your customers, you really solve a specific and unique problem, that you have enough word of mouth, that the product will keep growing. But for me, again, like even product-led growth, essentially it's what? It's word of mouth for your product. But how do you drive word of mouth? Yes, you need a good product, but you also need a clear value proposition. So you need good marketing. You need like an excellent service and customer support. Because again, a product that is flawless and without bug, it's not just a product that's been built incredibly well. It's a product where you have a support team or founders who've been listening carefully to their customers for so many months or years that they know perfectly what needs to be done, so they don't report bugs anymore, and they have like really nailed it down. So it never happens from one day to another. It's a lot of things that's been stacked up to go to that stage of product-led growth. Because even if you look at Lemlist, for example, like I think it's 95% of our customers come from people typing Lemlist. So obviously we could say it's product-led growth because it's only people like talking about, Lemlist, it works, that's their tool, they recommend it to other. But then when you look at what we do, we also have like biggest community around sales automation, awesome content, where we organize like challenges on Slack. We have like master classes, etc., like a support that answers 24/7, like a lot of things that makes, people want to talk about it. And for me, product-led growth just feel like a magical term when actually it's like a lot more.
I just realized that I misunderstood the term product-led growth. So because I am a marketer to my bone, basically, the way I was understanding product-led growth is that when you're marketing, you're talking about the product. As opposed to like being a thought leader, going to like some random interviews, or like doing some branding things like, oh, we have exposure, we have like logo on the Formula One, blah, blah, blah. But actually, no, talking about the product, talking about the features. But you made me realize that I am looking at the term product-led growth as a marketer and someone who is a founder and engineer they're looking at this term as a founder and engineer and they're thinking marketing will take care of itself. Okay, so that completely changes my understanding of what different people might imply when they say product-led growth. Because I'm totally with you. You can be building the best like functionality in the world. You can have the most product in the world, but how would people know about you? Okay, now from like I asked you about kind of the end game. Now let's go back to the very beginning of Lemlist, because again, what I've heard you say is that the way you got your first customers is that you were actually reaching out to them. You were doing outreach. You were pitching your software, and you were then documenting everything you was doing because you were using your own software to reach out to potential customers and sell them. And then you started building out inbound marketing engine.
Yeah.
Which is kind of interesting because you started from, as they say, eating your own dog food. Because Lemlist, again, you can expand more. I see it as mostly like outreach/sales software. So you reach out to people, you have like those accounts, blah, blah, blah. So you started from using it to get more customers, and then you started relying more on inbound rather than outbound. So tell me more about that.
Yeah, definitely. So essentially like from 0 to 1 million in annual recurring revenue, I was the only one in charge of like sales, marketing, customer support, like all these parts. We reached 1 million, I think, with a team of like 4 or 5. So it was just me like doing a lot of this. So when we started, we only had like $1,000 and AWS credit. So the tech side was like good because we had these credits for free. And the €1,000, I was like, okay, what can I do? I was like, ads, I don't really like believe in it. I think it's like too expensive and I don't want to waste my money. And I was also like not good at doing this. So I was like, okay, I'm just going to be doing what I know, which is sales prospecting. So I started using Lemlist, and I was doing like cold email, sales prospecting messages on LinkedIn, like multi-channel outreach. And step by step, I would just have meetings with different people around the globe. So I would test also different markets, which is the best thing about outreach is you know exactly who you reach out to, which no other acquisition channel can allow to do it. Because if I want to target specifically Team Solo, the only thing I can do is send you an email or send you like a cold DM or cold Instagram or whatever. But with ads or like any other topics, I wouldn't be sure 100% that I've reached out to you. So I started doing this, Australia, Europe, and United States. I would do basically like early morning demos with Australia, like Asia Pacific, essentially, and then in the late afternoon to night, like the US, and mid afternoon, like Europe. And France, because we are from France, and the French people are like the worst. They're like the cheap bastard. Like they don't want to pay the product. I'm French, so like I was like, fuck, like this is the worst. Yeah, this is literally like the worst. And in the US, like we started having like really good traction because we had like a unique differentiator that was essentially helping people to get more replies. So we were focused on both like ultra personalization with dynamic images, videos, and also like deliverability, like making sure that your message actually gets delivered and doesn't end up in spam. And because we were like the first to do this, and in the US, I feel like they are really looking for like very innovative solution all the time. The closing was a lot easier for me over there. So then after like a few months, I was heavily focused on the US, and now, it's like our biggest market. Representing, I think, like 70% of our total like revenue. And while I was running all these campaigns, I would notice something, it's like during demos, people would be like, yeah, but I'm not sure cold email like works and will generate revenue for us. So then I would be like, okay, like, let me ask you a question. If you are in a meeting with your ideal customer profile, can you close a deal? Yeah, of course I can close a deal. So you know that whenever you have a meeting, you will be able to close that deal. Yes, I know that for sure. Okay, so right now, how did we get that meeting again? And then, they realized that it was me sending them like the message, and that would be an easy close for me. And eventually, as we started scaling, people were wondering what kind of message works. because I think it's quite hard, the copywriting aspect of cold email, because when you are like a founder or a marketer or someone who's been working for a long time in a company, you kind of fell in love with your product and your features and all the things you do. And I think the risk is writing your cold emails as a marketer would write a newsletter. Like, this feature is really awesome, like for XYZ reason, or like these kind of things. Of course, it's not always as people write newsletter, but the risk is for people to be too self-centered and not enough talking about the problem, trying to build relationship, etc. So all the campaigns that I would do, I would test various different things. I had people like sending me replies where it was saying "fuck off, French motherfucker." So I took a lot of slap in the face during that place. But all the campaigns that worked, I would share them publicly to the world and explaining why it works. The one that did not work, I wouldn't really share them because I was a bit too embarrassed. But eventually, because I was the first to do this ever, because if you would type like cold email templates, you would end up on HubSpot, article written by a marketer. All the cold email templates are shit. They will never give you any answers. And whenever we would like basically properly showcase what was working, then people were getting like super excited. And eventually, because more people were asking me like more tips, I was like, okay, let's go on Facebook. Let's create this community where I'll share tips. And for basically like 6 to 12 months, I was sharing daily like posts about like campaigns, updates, etc., etc. And eventually, people starting doing the same. And then I started like I was like, okay, it's not sustainable for me to do all of this, and I can't like continue forever. So I need to kind of like first hire a bit of people, and also maybe like put our users as, you know, like the hero of our story and of them using the software. So I launched something called Lemlister of the Week, where every single week, one of our users would share entirely like their campaign. And that was something that no one had ever done in the world, because you have to imagine that back in the days, for people, and we see it also like right now, it's like people believe that their sales email is kind of like their secret weapon. They will not want their competitor to see it. Like they're afraid that, you know, like, cause it's their entire engine. It's the thing that they have spent so much time crafting, etc. But with Lemlist, because of all the thing I did, some people felt like, you know what, I want to share also. And the way I was selling it to them, it's like, we have the biggest community in the world. Some people are probably going to be interested in your solution. So if you share, you know, like your templates, it's also huge exposure for you and your business. And eventually, you know, like it started growing like this, and step by step, I started having like more and more word of mouth, and we were growing like until 10 million in annual recurring revenue at like 2-digit month over month with like a tiny team. So at some point, you know, you're just like, it starts working by itself, and you realize that, okay, like doing outbound on specific target right now, it's not my priority. So I kind of like stopped doing it. I hired like a sales team, and eventually we had like so many inbound leads that the sales team was like overflown. So we decided, okay, sales team, now you try to focus only on outbound, but you know, like sometimes it's also like the ups and downs, I think, of trying to start like a new department from scratch. I feel I made like a lot of mistakes along the way, and because the company was really growing fast, I would not be super focused on every single customer acquisition channel. I would just look at the top line, and I was happy with it. And now, you know, like we have a proper sales team focusing on like larger accounts, etc. Because for me, outbound, you also need to make your unit economic works. When you're a founder and you're doing everything yourself, you don't really care. Like I would do the outbound and close customer that would pay $40, you know, like per month. So technically, from a pure economical perspective, it's not worth it. But the thing is, like, because I'm a founder, and in the first year I would work maybe, I don't know, like 80, 90 hours per week and do like shit tons of demos. Eventually, you know, it adds up, and it's monthly recurring revenue. So what you want is like to delight at least your first 100 customers, then your first 500. And then eventually, once everything works and you've convinced them that they should use your product, then, you build up word of mouth and create a bit more virality.
This is a very cool framework. I was about to kind of ask you a tricky question along the lines of, so it seems that you were relying a lot on your own software in the beginning, not so much today. But you said that you're still relying on your software to get bigger accounts, which makes a lot of sense.
Yeah.
And I like the framework. So the framework, as I understand it, again, you can use something like Lemlist to reach out to and try to sell your product or service or whatever you have to people to get your first 100 customers, which gives you enough, hopefully, recurring revenue to start hiring employees. And with these employees, you can start building out an inbound engine. And as your inbound engine is bringing more and more kind of lower tier leads, because big accounts don't usually close themselves from inbound. They want to still talk to someone. And the biggest ones, you need to reach out to them because they're too busy with their own stuff. So basically your sales team switches from kind of reaching out and talking to just about anyone to selecting the best opportunities and going after kind of the Fortune 500 and whatnot.
Yeah, definitely. And I think, to be honest, for me, it's inbound and outbound. They should always work together. Like saying that I focus only on inbound and it works, I think it's stupid. And saying like I focus only on outbound and it works, I think it's also stupid. I think you're missing out a lot, because for me, down the line, why do I use Ahrefs versus the hundreds other like SEO tools out there? Well, I've followed your content. I know who you are. I trust you. I trust the product. So I'm like, yeah, that's it. But business for me it's about this thing. It's about trust. If, for example, tomorrow you meet Elon Musk and he's like, hey, Tim, I've got something to say. Give me like $1,000 today. And tomorrow on your account, I'll wire you like 10K. You will do it. Just because, this guy is like fucking billionaire and he has like trust levels that is like super high. But if it's like a random dude in the street who looks like really weird and cranky and he asks you like for $1,000 and what are you going to say? Like, sorry, man, I don't have money. But and I think in business it's the same. Ahrefs, what does it help you do? It helps you rank and, outsmart your competitors whenever you want to write articles so you can drive more traffic and therefore generate more revenue. Lemlist, it helps you generate more revenue through sales outbound. Your tools, whenever you build a SaaS, it's always tied to revenue. So technically, in a perfect world, I should use as many SaaS as I can because it always helped me generate more revenue. So why don't I do it? I don't do it simply because I don't trust a lot of them. I don't trust their value proposition. I don't know. And even though I don't say it like that internally, that's what it means, because we all want more money. We all want like growth. We all want our company to be more efficient. But the only reason why we use a software versus another one is because of trust. And that trust sometimes, can be translated into, I trust them because they have this feature. But then when you dig in, you realize it's not really the feature. It's maybe like the way they marketed it or the way you found an article that was talking about the specific things and then it reinforced your own beliefs and you are happy with it and you want to go with it. But in the end, it's just about trust. And for me, the only question you should ask yourself when you grow a business is what I'm doing building more trust or not? And if it's not building more trust, then you shouldn't be doing it.
Trust is a great topic, but before we go there, you mentioned community a few times when you were saying what helped you grow Lemlist to where it is today, and challenges on Slack. So you already shared how you were engaging with the community by asking your community members to share kind of their templates and processes, which is very cool. I immediately started thinking what kind of similar thing we can do at Ahrefs community. Because like with these conversations, I'm trying to get ideas for myself 100%. So tell me, what are the challenges on Slack? And just tell me overall about building a community. First of all, like what is the community? Should it like exist, I don't know, in the form of Facebook group, or I think you also tried using Circle.io, right?
Yeah.
Because
yeah,
for
I
us
can
it
give you
didn't work.
the whole story.
Come on, go ahead.
So we started with actually like Facebook groups, because back in the days I was like heavy on Facebook. I think like even though right now like we see a lot of people saying, yeah, Facebook is for old people, it doesn't work, etc., etc. There is still like huge businesses on Facebook. And there are like lots of people who are decision makers who spend a lot of time in like Facebook groups. It's active, like when you look at like active users on Facebook, it's still like hundreds of millions, if not like billions. So I started there, and the issue, and I think that was the biggest challenge, is how do you make sure that the community keeps on going if you're not the one in charge of it? So I'm going to give you like the whole story. It's like we started the community. I was the only one like managing it and doing it. Then I started hiring like people in marketing. And eventually I was like, okay, I can't be the one always in the community. So I started like introducing people, as like community manager, the person you should trust, etc., etc. So you try to put, all the effort you've done on another person. And the reality is like everything in life, whenever you hire someone, sometimes you make mistakes. Sometimes, it's not a good fit. Sometimes it doesn't work out. And for us, it's like, okay, so now that we have spent 6 to 12 months working with someone who, for example, is bored with the community or doesn't want to do it anymore, doesn't have the passion, what do? Like you hire someone new. And then, we did that. And eventually, you hire the wrong person and the wrong person. And eventually you're like, okay, is the community really a thing now? Or like, should we maybe like change something? Or when someone new is coming, they're like, yeah, but Facebook is not that good. It used to be really great, but now they've changed our algorithm. So this is why I think we should move to Circle. So then we moved to Circle. And Circle was actually great for us because we had like 2 really, really strong masterclasses, and we could host everything and see like what people, like the completion rate of people whenever they were going through the masterclass, etc., etc. So that was actually quite great. But in terms of interaction and activity, it was just like zero. And then you're like, okay, like you want to take this seriously. So instead of having like a random person, you take one of your first employee, like someone that you can count on, etc., etc. And then eventually, like after 6 to 12 months, you realize one more time that the person wants something different and that it's not a fit for them, etc. So I think community are extremely, extremely hard. And we went from Facebook to Circle to now Slack. We have a Slack, which I think is quite good because what we do right now, and it's pretty active, we work with like challenges where we bring in like hundreds of people to run a challenge where we're going to help them like generate like their first meetings and get like meeting booked. But it's very, very like intense, and I think it's hard to just find the right people, especially when you've started it. And I think we haven't right now. I think it's working like really well, but in the past, I feel like we did way too many mistakes in the way we managed it, and I think that's a hard thing because if a community becomes pretty inactive, starting to light the fire again is almost impossible.
You know what I realized? I blame you for us going to Circle.
Sorry, man.
I was watching what you guys were doing, and you have had a fairly successful Facebook group. I remember your messages like, hey, Lemlisters, blah, 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 blah.
Hey, Lemlisters.
And I saw that your people were engaged and all, and you were doing a great job. And then I saw that I think all of us, like all the communities that were on Facebook, we started losing the engagement.
Yeah.
Because previously when I was posting something, it was like hundreds of comments, hundreds of likes, yada, yada, yada. Then you post something, 7 likes.
Yeah.
What the hell is happening? Yeah, you didn't change much, but it's just Facebook not giving you the visibility. And I saw that you guys moved to Circle.
Yeah.
And I joined, I clicked around and like, this seems like a cool community. And you were like doing some this and that there. And I thought we should move to Circle as well.
we all, and I met actually with Sid, like the CEO of Circle, when I was in New York. So I think I was asking him, because we were like battle testing like a few platforms at the time, and we had dinner together, and it was really nice. So I was like, okay, like I'm just gonna tell the team, guys, like Circle, I've met the CEO. They want to launch this and this feature. It looks really cool. Like, let's give it a try. Because it's true, like as you said, like Facebook and I think this is an issue with Facebook versus like a Slack or like a Discord. Is Facebook, it's like it's an algorithmic platform. So if they change the algorithm on who's getting rich and who's not getting rich, you don't own anything. And I think like it's very difficult. What I thought is that people would naturally go on our Circle community, etc. But the reality is like we have so many apps, so many like different things that if you're not where people hang out, they're not gonna come and see you. Like it doesn't really work that way, I think.
Wait, I think I have your book right on my shelf.
Nice.
I want to learn more about this book. I can actually endorse and recommend this book to whoever is listening to us right now. It's called The $150 Million Secret by Guillaume Moubeche.
Yeah. It's good, huh?
I'm sure. I'm sure no one would be able to spell it, so better look up the name in the podcast episode. Like what I liked about this book, first of all, it's not that long. To be honest, it's not like unnecessarily long, how some people like to make their books. Secondly, it's incredibly specific and tactical. So you're actually sharing a lot of examples. You're sharing some articles. You're sharing some blog posts. You're sharing some frameworks, and it's quite an easy read. The fact that you wrote it or like wrote the first draft in 2 weeks, you're a freaking machine. It's crazy how much you can like focus on something and finish. Because right now I'm also writing a book. It wouldn't be as kind of as tactical. I'm trying to go a little broader, and I will try to go with kind of a conventional publisher. Because I believe you self-publish this, right? This is basically Amazon print on demand. So and it's a grueling task to write a proper book if you're doing it yourself, of course. And I'm even working with an agency. So because like you cannot be a good boxer if you don't have a coach who's been there, done that. So basically, it's not that they're ghostwriting the book for me, but they're guiding me through the whole process. Plus, they're acting as my editor, where like my writing is sloppy, and they make it prettier, but it's like 80 to 90% me still, and it's such a tough job. So writing this book, and it's a good book, in 2 weeks the first draft. It took, like you said, 4 months more to edit it and polish it, but man, you are like the output of yours is completely impressive.
Thank you. I think it's just for me, I was very like methodic in the way I wanted to approach the book. I think like the part I spent like the most time was really about nailing down the whole chapters and how I wanted to write it, and just like because I feel like sometimes people like they start with chapter 1 and they start writing, and then eventually they're like, okay, I will find the plan as I go. And for me, I think like I spent a lot of time like defining the exact structure, changing the structure, putting in subparts like all the topics I wanted to see. So I had like the mind map of the entire book I wanted to create, and then I could change like different parts and say like, okay, like this is useless, this doesn't go with this, here we can put this and this. And eventually like after that, just the writing is a lot easier because I can just go like all in. And also at the same time, I talk about this is also like a story of our company. So there are a lot of things that I've done myself, so I remember. So it's more like just telling my story and trying to make it actionable, essentially.
What did you do to launch it? Because 10,000 sales.
Yeah, it's a lot.
Is a lot.
So we did like I actually did like a really big webinar where I emailed like all our list, etc. And in the webinar, it was the same formula as what I did for the cold email masterclass that we sold. So it's I give a lot of value. The whole webinar is about like how to grow a business when you have like limited resources. And I gave like super actionable examples, super like specifics, etc., etc. And at the end of it, I will give like a launch offer and say, for example, like the book is gonna be at that reduced price until like in the next 24 hours. And you also have the Kindle that costs like $1. So it's like, it was very like, like an easy sell for people. And very quickly after that, you receive a lot of reviews. I think when I crossed like 50 5-star review on Amazon, then, it gets like recommended. And because if you get a lot of sale in the first week, essentially Amazon's going to push it to a much broader audience. And eventually like, is just, rolling a lot faster. And I think the reviews are like really important. And I've also managed inside the book, to have like a little call to action for people to make reviews, so they can scan a QR code and they have a video of me or something like this, which I think worked also really well.
This is very cool. So I want to dig a little bit more into marketing of Lemlist that helped you to get there. So what you mentioned in one of your previous interviews is that you have a lot of branded traffic, and I checked that in Ahrefs, and it is true. You have tons of search traffic coming from Lemlist, Lemlist app, Lemlist software, and those kinds of things that have your brand Lemlist in them. And what I noticed is that somewhere around 2021, you had a big spike in searches for Lemlist in France. So I wonder if you remember.
Yeah, definitely.
What you did there.
So as you know, like I've always shared like content to help entrepreneurs like grow their businesses. And at some point I had launched, I think it was in end of 2020, I had launched my YouTube channel where, I had a lot of people like asking me questions about like growing a company, growing a software, etc. And eventually as I grew the channel, a lot of people were asking me about fundraising, because in 2021 it was all about fundraising. The guy or the person who would raise the most fund, they will get the most press article on TechCrunch, etc., etc. And eventually I got I was talking with Nathan Latka, and he was asking me about updates, and then he was like, yeah, you're growing like crazy, like you could raise funds, but do you actually need it? And then I said, like, the only reason why I would raise funds is to get an article on TechCrunch. And then I started laughing. And then he was like, but you know what? Like, what you could do is raise funds, decide to raise funds, get like a VC sent you like a term sheet, and then send your term sheet to TechCrunch and saying that you're going to refuse it. And you will get the article. And then we laughed together. And I came home. And I started sleeping on it, and I was like, it's actually like a brilliant idea. And basically what I decided to do, because I still wanted to educate people, so I said, okay, we're going to do something people had never done before, which is raising funds in public. So I announced publicly that we were raising like $20 million. And then I documented the whole process. So I was pitching to like a US VC, etc., with all my metrics. And the pitch was like 1 hour long, and it got like, I don't know, like 10,000 plus view or something like this. And the VCs all over the world got crazy. Like they started sending me like messages to me. They wanted to see, because they had like all our metrics, churn rate, growth, etc., etc. And eventually like we received a term sheet of $20 million at a $100 million valuation. And just after that, we received another term sheet. And this time the term sheet had something I had never seen before, which is called secondary, which was essentially like $15 million for the company, or $15 million for us as founders. And then I was like, what the fuck is that? Like, I had never seen that. I didn't know secondary. I didn't know cash out, etc. So initially, my thought was, when you raise fund, the money goes directly into the company. So as a founder, you essentially don't make anything out of it, which for me was pretty useless. Like if you're not benefiting from it as a founder and you don't actually need the money to accelerate, why would you raise fund? But this time Another fund we had never met had done like, I don't know, like type of like banker presentation with like 20 slides. Our competitors, like they knew everything. They had like even interviewed some of our customers to get insights on what they thought about the product, etc. Like they had done something I had never met from VCs. And when I received that, I was like, fuck, like this is an insane offer. But I had still planned to say no to show that you can grow a company being bootstrapped. You can skyrocket your growth without having to raise funds. And it's not because you're not in the press with TechCrunch saying that you've raised shit tons of money that you're not successful. And it was very cocky, a bit like sneaky to do it. So I just said no publicly. And then I got like interviewed in tons of French media, and it got like pretty wild. Lots of people also were kind of pissed because, like, especially actually like the funny part about it is I knew it was a risk to get like some of the VCs or investors a bit mad, but actually it did the opposite. They were super happy because they came back to see me and they say, you know what, like for us, saying no to companies is not something we enjoy particularly. And, with everyone seeing all these articles in the press, we get like so many messages every single day, and people don't realize that it doesn't make sense sometimes and that some companies shouldn't raise funds. So thank you for that. And thank you also for illustrating that VCs often like have FOMO, fear of missing out, and that they would do crazy things that don't even make sense, even though they had never met the founder. They were able to like send a term sheet. It's crazy with crazy terms. It's insane. And later on, the guys, who had done this offer with like 15 million and 15 million, I decided to meet with them because they had done like a lot of work and I had never seen such quality. And we started talking. And then eventually I told them like, we don't want to raise. And then they're like, okay, would you consider 100% secondary? And then I was like, I don't know. Let's see. And a few months later, we basically sold them like 20% of the company for 30 million. And my co-founders left, and we kind of like re-changed the cap table. But it was it was just like insane. Like it's the kind of things where, if I had not done this, I would have never learned about secondary. I would have never become like a multimillionaire so early, and So just lots of crazy story, and I guess it also created a pike in search in Ahrefs, so that's cool.
No, this is such a great story, and Nathan is so freaking smart, such a smart dude. It's crazy. I need to actually bring him to the podcast as well. Oh, I didn't know. And what I've noticed is that the search volume for Lemlist is actually, I think, 3 times bigger in France than in the US.
Okay.
So I guess because you were interviewed a lot in the French
at that time
media,
it was crazy. It was mainly in France, like that the thing was big, like national television, etc. It was just insane, and I feel like, I think, to be honest, what could have been like even more fun is for me to just go to the US and film everything like in public and do like these kind of things. I should have done it. But I had never done PR before, and we got approached by like a French PR firm. So I was like, okay, maybe that makes sense. And I think it was not smart because all our customers were in the US, and I could have done like something, I would say like maybe a lot smarter and broader. But in any case, it was good fun.
Amazing story. Did you get the TechCrunch article?
The guy didn't want to. But TechCrunch, I feel like TechCrunch, to be honest, especially like in France, I think the journalist at TechCrunch is like, he received like so many messages that I think he believes he's a god.
So how does the marketing look like today? What are the staples? What are the main channels?
I'm going to give you an example, very specific example. We have like this hub where we have all the templates that people can leverage. And the templates come from existing users who are like skyrocketing their results and who are like happy to share it. So I basically wrote a post where I was explaining like, hey, on average, people get 1% reply rates, but these templates got on average maybe like 15% reply rates. If you want to get access to them, simply comment cold email or something like this. Then you're going to have like hundreds, if not thousands of people commenting. You give them the link in public. And then at the end, you edit your post so people can access the link directly on your LinkedIn profile or on the post that they are going to see. And it drove like maybe, I don't know, like let's say 4,000 people visiting the hub. And on the hub, they can duplicate the template directly into a Lemlist account. So from 4,000 people on the hub, you maybe have like 400 people who duplicated one template. So that's like 400 sign up. And then that's like 100 customers. So that's like the funnel classic. If you're doing something that is purely inbound and purely like, like in the context of product-led growth or marketing-led growth or whatever. So what we do on top of it is that we scrape all the people who liked the post and commented the post. We check whether or not they have created an account, and we reach out to them via email with something very specific, like, hey, I know it's hard like to get, reply rates whenever you want to do outbound. There are like X, Y, and Z problem that we've noticed with our customers. Does that make sense that we chat about our best practice and what's been working for us next week? And this is a message that comes from someone for a sales rep. You know that the people are interested in a topic, and therefore you have a much more likelihood to close them. And this is the perfect mix between inbound and outbound.
Scraping LinkedIn. Is this why your account was banned?
No, it's a whole other story. So essentially, like, before, in parallel of Lemlist, I need to confess, I'm not like super proud of this project. I think I learned a lot, but I think it was also like one of the mistakes I did when I was a bit younger. Back in the days, not sure if you remember, but there were like a lot of groups where, let's say, you post on LinkedIn or you post on Twitter, and you're going to ask to a group of marketers, hey guys, here is my post. Can you please engage so it get more reach? So the idea is like, engagement pods.
Like that.
So the idea is like, okay, like we don't have money to do ads. We are like small businesses and we want to help each other. So we're going to post like the link to our post and we're going to basically help each other out. And when I started like being in groups like this, eventually I was like, this is so fucking stupid that we can't automate this, because I know like my group of friends, I will like for sure their post, like I'm happy to do it, but just being like on WhatsApp or Slack to click and go, it's just a waste of time and I lose my focus and I don't like it. So in 2 days, I developed like a Chrome extension with my team, and we were like, okay, like let's see if it works. And the thing got really viral. And at first it was like kind of free. And eventually after like, 2 weeks, we started saying like, okay, pay $5 per month for pods, you're in. But very quickly it got out of hand. Like the product went to like $600,000 in our annual recurring revenue. And I was like, okay, like I've got Lemlist which is a real business, and I have this, it's generating like shit tons of money. But in reality, like if I want this to be like a qualitative product, we need to change a lot of things. We need to monitor who's doing what, because we had people, for example, who would just join a lot of pods. The moderators of each pod wouldn't care because they wanted the biggest numbers. They would just accept everyone. And we would have people, for example, posting stuff about like religion, wars, etc., getting huge engagement. And for me, I was not happy with it. So I was like, okay, I don't want to invest more time on it, but it's still wealth that we've created. So I'm going to sell this software. So I went with Thomas Mal, like the guy at FE International. Maybe you've met him at like SaaS Talk or whatever. So it's like internet broker essentially. And he found us like buyers. They acquired the company, and LinkedIn sent us like a cease of desist on Lempod. And then I told them, guys, like, okay, like I understand what you're saying, but I have sold the company. And then they asked me, okay, give me the name of the new owner. And when I asked like Thomas Mal, like whether or not I could do it, and in the agreement, it is said that I cannot do this. So I told LinkedIn about it. I had like Thomas wrote a letter, etc. And LinkedIn said, as long as you don't give us like the name, we're going to ban your profile. And essentially like they banned my profile, and that was it. Like they banned the whole name Guillaume Moubeche on LinkedIn. So there were an operation after that, like 6 months after that, I think, where people created like the free Guillaume Moubeche hashtag, and the hashtag got even banned. So it was shadow banned for every people who had like this hashtag, because hundreds of people posted. And eventually, like I came back a bit later, but yeah, it's a bit of a shitty story overall, but yeah.
Man, I think like your stories is a Netflix kind of content. I can see like Netflix series about Guillaume and like building Lemlist and everything. But let's talk about one of my favorite topics, which is marketing attribution. Because you said you're doing a lot of stuff. You're doing content, you're doing YouTube, you're doing a lot of posting on LinkedIn. How do you track the ROI, the all-important ROI? And like what kind of reports do you create, the marketing team? How does it report?
Yeah, my team is not going to be super happy about like me talking about this topic, because personally...
That's what we're here for.
Personally, I think like attribution marketing is mostly like bullshit, and for many reasons. I just think that a lot of the things that you're doing are not like trackable. When you have like 95% of people coming on the website who type Lemlist, how do you know like what article, what whatever, what post they've seen on social, what video of me they saw on Instagram or on TikTok or whenever? How do you know it? You can't. And for me, it's like as simple as that. It's like you can't know for sure what you've done and what influenced, except for very specific acquisition channels, like for example, ads. And even with ads, actually you realize that Facebook or like Meta and even Google are often very greedy when it comes to acquisition. So typically like they're going to say like that, you know, like whenever you retarget your existing audience or when you do lookalike or whenever, I think it's like so complex that to have something that's like really precise, it would take enormous amount of time, enormous amount of energy and resources. And the question you should always ask yourself is, if I spent, let's say, 30K per month to build a team that builds me like an attribution model that's going to be 60% accurate, am I happy with it? Is it helpful? Am I learning things knowing that it's 60% accurate? What do I do when I learn things? And would have this $30,000 investment been made in a smarter way if I had done it on, I don't know, like creating more content, hiring sales, doing other things that I believe work. And I think marketing is a lot about belief, is a lot about, you know, like trust, is a lot about making sure that you're bringing value to people. And I just feel like, to give you a very specific example, we started SEO seriously, like meaning investing like a lot more than when we were before, 6 months ago. Today, when they do a reporting, they tell me that we get, I don't know, like on the overall like Lemlist attribution of customers, of new revenue, I think we get maybe like 80% from SEO. That's how they report it to me. So then I'm like, okay, like, can you tell me what's this 80%? Because it's awesome, man. You're generating like millions of revenues through SEO. It's huge. Like the ROI is insane. And then they're like, yeah, so in SEO we have different parts. I'm like, okay, what are the different parts? So we have branded keywords. I'm like, okay, like how is this SEO? Like before you think we didn't have any branded keyword. And people, it's crazy because even though I have this discussion every time they show me a report. And for me, it's just insane how people are dishonest with data. They want the data to show you something. So they're going to always, and it's not that they meant the wrong way. It's just like that's human behavior to always optimize for what you want to see. And initially I'm a scientist. So I'm like a chemical engineer. I've got like master in drug discovery, etc. So I know that even from scientific mind, people who are supposed to be very Cartesian, very, strict and processized, etc. I know that people, whenever they want to see the certain results of an experiment, they will do everything in their power for it to happen. And it's a bias. It's a human bias. I've seen so many people like, and any scientist will tell you that in courses, even like at masters, PhD, etc., you have people manipulating experiments. Not everyone does that, but there is a big chunk of people who publish articles who are absolutely inaccurate in science just because either they want their article, either they were like so happy to have found something different that it feels good for them to do it, but it's not repeatable, it doesn't work. And in marketing, it's exactly the same. And for me, right now we are tracking like, of course, different things. And I think for ads, it can be quite nice. I think it's good to see like that you get more traffic from the articles you are writing and that potentially, you know, like your blog gets more traffic, etc. But I think a proper attribution model is not that great, to be honest. And I'm not a big believer in it. I love to watch the top line. The only issue is when your top line kind of like stop growing or you hit like a plateau at some point. The only issue with it is, what do you do? Do you keep believing that you need to continue doing what you're doing and get better at it so you break that glass ceiling? Or do you start like thinking, okay, I have to redo everything, but then if I have to redo everything, what should I start with? And I think this is why attribution is also good sometimes, is because like when you don't know, you can get specific leads and specific like insights on various different topics on where you should maybe double down and where you should maybe stop, and then see what's working and what's not working. But I often feel that people use data to reassure them instead of just, you know, like sometimes following guts and just common sense, I would say.
Yeah, this is a very good point, how SEO team would put branded traffic in their reports and like attribute conversions to branded traffic. This is the same for PPC. Whenever you hire like a PPC agency, they would lump your branded traffic, and we have never bid on our branded traffic because we believe this is our traffic inherently. We shouldn't pay Google to send us clicks for our brand name because they are a freaking wow. They are a freaking search engine. Doesn't work for you. I'm using an iPhone. Oh, no longer work. They are a freaking search engine. It is their job when people are searching for us to lead people to our website. Why the hell do we need to pay for it? So yeah, it's crazy. So what else does your marketing team report on if you are not that bothered about attribution? Do they report on, I don't know, their output? How many pieces of content were published? Do they report, for example, you said you are very active on LinkedIn, and when I say you, I mean your entire team. You said like 10 people or something. How do they report on their LinkedIn activity? I don't know.
Yeah, so we do it every quarter. Like everyone who posts needs to kind of like show like the amount of followers that has grown, and also like the views, etc., and the also like the persona that is the most affected by the content, because now we can see it with LinkedIn, which is quite nice. But the thing is like that LinkedIn part is really like it's optional for the team. Like we don't force people to do it, etc. So it's kind of like on top. And overall, like right now, like people have like different. We've changed a lot the way we track like objectives and key results, like OKRs. At first, we were doing like OKRs per people, etc. It was like very, very detailed, and it was not that great. So we started like we were doing like output-driven metrics, like how many articles should you do, etc., etc. And now we have like kind of like a mix of what needs to be achieved and like more, I would say, like high level and tracking, and also like output. But I think it's quite difficult like to do something that is one or the other. I think it should always be both. But if you focus only on the output, you end up with people essentially writing like shitty content, and they do not care. And if you focus only on the results, you sometimes have people kind of like either cheat or maximize different things. So because let's say something, let's take a very actionable example, because otherwise it's going to be like too philosophical. But you have a marketer, you say that, okay, your role is to drive more traffic. I think it's specific enough for a marketer to say like a specific role is to drive more traffic. So for them, what they can do is like, yeah, sure. Like either I spend more on ads, I, enlarge like the ICP, I do like all these things, and there's going to be more traffic. So that marketer technically with that objective, he can meet the objective just because he lowered the quality of the leads on top. Then you have the one who's supposed to have like conversion rate improvements. Okay, I want my conversion rate to improve. So now the only thing I'm going to do is only have people signed up who are like extremely relevant and who I know who are going to pay. So I'm basically removing maybe like the free trial. I'm just putting like, a demo with sales, and that's the only thing I'm doing. That way I know that whenever they land on the platform, they will convert and they will become paid. And that marketer, again, found their objective and they're good. So if you don't have like the right mix, you will eventually always come up to the wrong behaviors. And there are like so many books about it, about how, human beings change their like decision and behaviors based, on what they are measured on. And I think it's natural. So the goal is to try to always work in a smart way where you look at both. I don't think you shouldn't have an attribution model. I think you should have one that is like good enough to give you insights, but not rely 100% on it, and continue to focus on, do you deeply believe that the quality is high enough? And that's why hiring is the most important part. All the people who are going to be the one reviewing the quality of the work and the quality of what has been done, they need to be good at their job. Someone I really like, Rick Robbins, is one of the guys, who created and produced one of the best music, or like the most well-known music. Like he worked with Jay-Z, worked with pretty much like any top artist in the world. So the guy is like gray hair, like long beard, etc. And then, one guy asked him like, hey, do you play any instrument? No. Do you know how to sing? No. Do you have like a good, the pitch perfect, No. And then the guy is like, okay, so how come, And it's like, I believe in my capacity to recognize exceptional work. And that's it. And he is paid, and he's so famous for this. And I think this is especially relevant right now, especially with ChatGPT and all this AI content and AI tasks that are going to come. It's like, if you don't know how to recognize quality, if you don't know what good looks like, you're going to be like in trouble, I think, for the years to come. Because the one, who will get out of the masses are the one who can recognize what good looks like, what very good looks like. And that's how, you can leverage AI to the next level, because if it's not good, you can always modify it to what you want. And for me, in your team, you need to have these people who understand what good looks like, who understand why it benefited the user or why it will benefit the user. And when you have this, then everything is basically like flowing down, and it reflects, on the growth and revenue.
Ability to recognize exceptional work. I noted it down because it is such a good phrase, and I completely agree with you. I would love to dig into it further, but we're slowly running out of time, unfortunately. But this brings us very nicely into something you mentioned before, which I wanted to go back to, that you hired a CMO. So walk me through that. Tell me, how did you come up with the necessity to hire a CMO? And what are you expecting from this person?
It's a good question. It's actually quite hard, when you're growing a company, to know when you need to hire up or when you need to help your team level up. From the very beginning of Lemlist, I've always been leveling up people, buying courses, spending time with them, coaching them, really trying to do whatever it takes so they can go to the next level. But at some point, we've also had this thing where the first employees, like they left, they wanted to do something new, or like the company was getting like too big for them and they wanted to go back to 0 to 1. And then, like it's a lot about trying to understand what people need, what people want from their life, how they want to do things. And for us, at some point, we realized that the people, who were like good at marketing were not always like good at managing marketing. And I think there's a big difference between willing to be a top performer and recognizing talent and not being threatened by other talent. So you see, like, I feel like it's, what is tough is when you are like a manager and a CMO, you need to hire people who are smarter than you in specific topics, and you need to work with them. So your quality of recognizing exceptional work is actually really helpful because you know how to build a team. And for us, we had at some point issues with this inability to have, like a very strong team, or recognizing what exceptional work look like, or even the inability to find people better than us or better than the existing team. And I think when we dig deep into this, sometimes, it comes from, like not willing to hire someone who's smarter, or when someone has like a different point of view, taking it personally, or just like bad management practices, etc. And eventually, like, and personally, like I made these mistakes like so many times. Like I've hired people, it was not working well, etc. But down the line, when the company is growing, you can't be rebuilding a team every 6 months. It's just not possible. Like if you're doing this like 2 times in a row, you've basically wasted a year. So we ended up at a point where we needed kind of to put a lot more structure towards where we want to go, how we want to do it. And that's when we kind of like started interviewing like CMOs, and we found someone who was like just not the most creative person, but someone who's extremely well organized and who has been scaling marketing at a whole new level. And that's something like we needed, because the ideas, the creativity, I mean, I have ideas every 10 seconds, like if I start brainstorming on any companies, I can give like hundreds of different ideas of things that needs to be done that will work out. But I need people down the line who can really filter my ideas and just like be hyper focused and bring the best ideas to the team, and just like having it executed. And I think now that was like the perfect timing for us, and the quality of the team has really increased in the last, I would say, 8 months.
Final question: do you have any like actual kind of official mentors, someone who you would call yourself mentor? Or if not, do you have like a group of people or entrepreneurs who you kind of regularly check in with, bounce ideas, ask for advice, or maybe even meet once in a while?
I don't have like an official mentor, but I have like a lot of different entrepreneurs I would see at different times. When I'm in Paris, actually, I have like a few entrepreneurs I like to either organize dinner with, or that I'm seeing, like just to talk mainly about like topics that can be like annoying, like scaling or like hiring or like management or these kind of things, where sometimes, you have like, or lawyer stuff, or, like build up M&A, like all these kind of things. It's usually really helpful when you have like the right people in your corner. And for me, it's, I've been part of like a few groups in the past, but right now I'm more like doing it myself, just reaching out with people in my network whenever I have like, the need. And sometimes I also do it the other way around, like people reach out to me and we have lunch or whatever. And this is also quite helpful, just because it's a good exchange of best practices. And when people share their problems, sometimes it gives me ideas also for things we need to solve. So,
Guillaume, thank you so much. That was an amazing conversation.
Thanks
you,
a lot
for taking the time.